Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm Jeff Howard, and I'm delighted right now to have Sam Gasch on the podcast. Hey, Sam.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. This is going to be a fun conversational podcast. Most are. But I'm just going to start off by saying, well, your introduction should actually start off with you are an excellent screenwriter, and I can say that with confidence because actually at Sherman Oaks Film Festival and Film Invasion Los Angeles, becoming an official selection screenplay, and you've had two. You had The Blanket was at Film Invasion Los Angeles in 2023, and that was a feature-length screenplay. Oh, they're both features. And then at Sherman Oaks Film Festival 2025, you came back with another feature-length screenplay, My Dog Loves Broccoli. You kick ass, by the way, with the log lines and the titles.
Thank you.
And which is always a sign of a good writer. But also, you know, we met in 2023 at the Film Invasion LA Mixer. I believe that year, like you were able to attend the Mixer, but then you couldn't come to the screenwriter's ceremony or something. But
yeah, I don't remember what was going on that particular year because that's exactly what happened. Because I was like, I've attended a couple of different film fests at that theater. And I like that theater a lot, and I like attending film fests. But I remember like attending the Mixer and being like upset I wasn't able to attend the actual fest, and I don't remember what was going on with me in 2023. It could have been anything.
but my memory would be that like you had a family, you had to go out of town though. I knew you were leaving town, so you managed to make the Mixer before leaving, something like that.
I'm so tempted to scroll back in my phone and look, but I genuinely it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But I found you to be just one of my favorite people to talk to. You know,
Thank you.
I would confess that I am one of those introverted extroverts or extroverted. Like I kind of dread those big mixers, like having to work the room and talk. But then when I'm there, I really enjoy talking to people. But
Yeah.
I'm that person who wants to talk to one person for like a little bit of quality time, not just superficial around the room. So
Yeah, I've got that ambivert thing going too. And it's very much like I need a social anchor where like I know like I can be moored here and talk to this person for a while and I'll have a good conversation. And then when I'm feeling good, I can drift somewhere to some other conversations and chat with some other folks. And I find that functions a lot more with my anxiety as well.
exactly. So that's why we bonded. And
Exactly.
that's why I always enjoyed seeing you when you come to mixers and things. And it was so fun to hear you talk about your horror film about because the Blanket was a horror film. I always remember. And I mean, honestly, the title "My Dog Loves Broccoli" says all you need. But in my intro, I was implying, but I didn't get there. I was mentioning that we get the screenplays that are official selections at both film festivals represent honestly less than it's tighter than the top 10% of submissions. So like 90% of the scripts, honestly more like 92%, just aren't well, you know, it's a selection process.
Yeah.
So I just want to point out that both your screenplays being official selections means that our very dedicated, wonderful screenplay jurors, of which I'm not one. As you can imagine, you can't watch like 700 films and read scripts when you can't be on both juries.
No, that would be quite a lot.
And I don't know, something happens as you age. I used to be able to read like a 90 to 120 page screenplay in like, you know, a day or two. Like I could crank through them. And I don't know, maybe it's that damn phone or something, but around page 15, 20, I have to take a break every 10 to 15 pages. And then, I don't know, I just can't. Honestly, when people ask me to read screenplays, I go, yeah, so you're asking me to do something that I've learned to not want to do.
And that's kind of one of the difficulties in trying to be a screenplay writer in Hollywood right now is that it's so difficult to get people to read the thing. Because theoretically, it's presentational in the same way that acting is, but acting, all you have to do is send them a 30-second clip, and it's like, great, I understand how good or bad you are as an actor. But for a screenwriter, especially for features, I was going to say especially for like feature screenplays, I'm like, that is what it doesn't matter. That kind of sometimes you need to read the whole thing because like you can set something up, you can tell an incredible story, but if it all falls apart at the ending, then that's also a problem. And unfortunately, you
Huge.
need to get all the way through the screenplay in order to find out if it falls apart at the ending.
Exactly. And I love what you said because what I inferred from it is that really screenwriting is a type of performance. You're
Oh, yeah.
performing on the page. And if someone doesn't read that script, if they just read written on it by an intern or this or that, which I know we all know is like the majority of it is some unpaid reader is like the one reading your script. Yeah, everything goes missing. And the
Yeah.
actual if and when the performance is there on the page, then it leaps off the page and is always better on screen. And
Yeah. I had an internship, I don't know, a decade ago, where I was doing coverage for a management company. And I'm sure people who are listening to this podcast are familiar with what coverage is, but just in case, coverage is basically doing exactly what you say, taking a screenplay, a script of some kind, and kind of condensing it down, highlighting the main characters, highlighting the plot, kind of giving a log line and a sense of what the script is. And you're presenting it so that the people don't have to read the full script or script, screenplay, a book in one case. And I remember I did all of that, and the manager was really only interested in reading the things that I gave the best reviews to and the worst reviews. Like I had a whole conversation with him one time when I gave something of like 0 out of 5 stars. Don't do this one. This one's terrible. And he was like, "Really? Why?" And I was like, oh, "Okay, let me tell you."
that totally checks out. And yeah, I always actually had a darkly cynical view towards it, which is it's really coverage is so that people who executives, whatever you want to call it, so that people can have opinion on something that they haven't read.
Correct.
And
Absolutely, yes.
and the odds of that opinion is it's not their opinion. It is a broken system. But let's jump back. Let's because I promised you this by the way, because this is how this podcast works. Because I am as a festival runner eternally grateful to the people who are creative and write scripts, make films. Our festivals would not be what they are without the creatives. So I always start with someone's creative journey. So how old were you when you got the creative bug? Were you just creative from the get-go? Were you more into what was your creative emphasis as a young person?
So I spent the vast majority of my youth thinking I was going to be an actor. I when I was in first grade, we did our school play, and I was the lead character, and I had been like leads or like supporting or whatever for basically all through elementary and middle school. I got to high school and then like dropped off a little bit in that I definitely in the running, but rarely like the person up front. Just like I kind of have a baby face, and that at that time it was like no, 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 you're gonna be the little brother, the kid, all of those sorts of things. And then I got to college, and it kind of got in that mix again. And it wasn't real. And I that whole time I was like, I have a niche of the kind of performer that I am and that I can be. And I would regret it forever if I didn't give an attempt to see if I could do that professionally. Because like about like I was the kid who was good at math. Like my parents always kind of suspected that I would go to business school, and I never wanted to. So I have always kind of wanted to be creative, and my favorite people to hang out with are creative people. And so I moved out to LA to do actor things. And I never really saw success with that at all. Like I would do a little bit here, a little bit there, and there's an aspect to it where I've never really had good representation that would find me like those kinds of roles. But the more you stay in LA, the more you hear you have to start creating your own work, you have to start doing these sorts of things. And so I was like, great, good idea. And so I started writing sketches and shorts. And the more I kept doing that, the more I realized I was writing parts for people who were not me. And I realized, oh, I don't need or want to be in these things that I'm writing. And I started listening to podcasts that were interviewing writers, and I kept hearing these people talking in such a way where they were kind of discussing things and presenting them in similar ways that I would be thinking about them. And I was like, oh, I have a lot more in common with writers than I do with actors, especially with like the anxiety and the introversion and all of that. And it made me start thinking back to just like my entire creative process. And I was kind of always a writer and never really realized it. I remember I really enjoyed the creative essays when I was in high school. When I was in college, for my senior thesis as a drama major, I wrote a play and then did not perform in it. And it was like, oh, well, obviously then you're a writer. Like what? And it no one ever told me that. It never occurred to me. And I finally kind of like just like came to the conclusion on my own and I was like, oh, obviously. And so like I've been doing a lot more writing and pursuing things that way. And I certainly have found more success as a writer than I ever did as an actor. I can't say I'm a successful writer yet, but you know what? We're still working, and that's what everyone's trying to do.
Exactly. And let me ask, because you mentioned moving to LA. So where did you grow up?
Oh, I'm from Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson. All right. So not too far, but also
No.
not the kind of place, because I actually have in-laws there, but beautiful town,
Lovely.
wonderful stargazing.
Wonderful place to grow up, fantastic place to retire. Time in the middle, maybe not so much.
Yeah, and no presence of I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure there's local stage and stuff, but it's certainly not a place where you grow up around the industry and aware of all the jobs and like
Well, so
or
turns out that was my perception as well. Turns out that's not entirely true, kind of anymore. Tucson. So I before we started recording, I was talking to you about meeting someone at a film fest. I went back to Tucson for a film fest called Legendary Film Fest, which is in Tucson, and the whole thing was sponsored by an organization called Film Tucson, which is all about getting people to film in and around Tucson. Because Tucson also has Old Tucson, which is where like Tombstone was filmed and a bunch of other westerns. And Tucson is a very unique location. You can't film Tucson for anywhere else. But because of that, it's a unique location. You can film anywhere in Tucson and it feels like that. But yeah, and Tucson also has like Casa Video and I'm blanking on the name of like a very like old projector reel theater. And there's a really big artistic culture in Tucson, probably motivated by the fact that that University of Arizona is there and there's a lot of like creative energy kind of moving in and out of the town. But even the summer before I moved to LA, I was trying to like learn more about film and there was like constantly films and stuff happening. The Loft, that's the name of the movie theater. And yeah, it's a very artsy town if you know where to look, but I do stand by that I'd prefer not to be living there right now.
understood, understood. So but was your creativity fostered as a kid, or were you kind of on your own?
Let's say it was fostered enough. My parents are lovely people, but they are not creative. Or certainly were not at that time. In my mom's retirement, she's found glass art and she's really loved that. I have a couple of her pieces here in my apartment, and that's lovely. But my parents were always like, yeah, of course we'll support your artistic endeavors because you're going to go to business school someday. And they didn't know. They were just like being supportive, wonderful parents. And then like the first decade I was living in LA, it was like, hey, cool. Have you considered looking at MBA programs and all of that? And I think they've finally come around to the fact that that ain't happening.
Understood, understood. Excellent. All right, so you come out, and by the way, I love how you so naturally the writer in you naturally arose from the actor.
It helps because I think every writer should take improv. Like I did improv for years and years. I was on a bunch of different teams, performed improv for a long time. And especially as someone with a lot of anxiety, like improv gets you out of your head and I don't know really anything that is as effective as that. And I think as a writer, sometimes you just need to get to the end of the scene. And especially, I like moments when you're letting your characters kind of tell you what needs to happen, which is something that happens in improv. And so I think having the basis as the performer makes me a stronger writer.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, well, I mean, not everyone has to do everything, but some of the best actors in the world consider themselves writers. And I've been aware, I've even, read multiple times Jack Nicholson saying, I mean, a lot of the great actors rewrite all their own dialogue. They don't touch other people's dialogue, but the reason we think they're so good is that writing and acting really are, I mean, they're both a form of performance, for sure.
Yeah. Uh-huh. It's very true.
And you clearly don't have the, well, I don't mean to insult actors, But not everyone has the kind of ego where they write something and don't give themselves a part, let alone the lead.
Yeah. It's I've certainly written things where I'm like, there is a character in here I could play, but I'm not like it's fine. Like the script that allowed me to get into the WGA was a script called Tournament. It was this movie that got made 8-ish years ago, where basically it was about the sorts of nerds who spend their weekends playing trading card games. And I met the producers of that movie at a Magic the Gathering tournament, and so I wrote this whole script for slash with them, and I wrote one of the characters as a struggling writer in Hollywood. They didn't give that part to me, and you know what? That's fine. The director's brother needed the role too.
That is really funny. The director's brother. So fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Well, but what was the process like uh becoming a screenwriter? Because did you study it on your own? Did you go by instinct alone?
Um,
Did you get
Both.
tempted by a couple of, because I always hear people talk about, those UCLA extension
Yeah,
classes and
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
people jump into.
I think I tried to apply for a scholarship to the UCLA extension. I think I tried twice and it didn't work both times. So I was like, all right, well, c'est la vie. I took sketch writing classes through UCB. I read a couple of the books. Like I read the Linda Venus edited book Inside the Room, which was very helpful. And then I also read the Tom Lennon Ben Garant book, Writing Movies for Fun and Profit, which is so good. And I also just recommend reading that because it's super fun and delightful, and it's a good look into the creative process anyway. I just think that's a very, very good book.
Yeah, I love
But
them.
it's the thing that I think makes people stronger writers is being in creative communities. Like I've had writing groups for 10, 12 years. And you have to get good at taking notes and listening to notes and learning and amplifying the sorts of things that you're creating. It also helps because it gives you deadlines. I also I did a weekly sketch writing thing back at IO West when that was still a thing. A creative and writer I know named Nick D, they ran this incredible thing called Sunday Sketch Series, where for all the Sundays in a month, we would have to come in with a sketch, take notes, repeat it, and we'd have to come up with different ideas and things to present to the actors. And so then there would be a performance every week, and then a different director every week. And it was very cool and interesting and fun. And like having to work and having to work quickly makes you better. But the more you write, the better you get. But I can't say that I didn't start because of spite, because I definitely started writing because of spite. Like that's just how that works. Like
Literally
I
fight for, if you're not going to cast me, I'm going to write.
No, it wasn't like
Oh,
that. It was, I had a friend who was visiting one time and I took them to a taping of a show that I no longer remember the name of. But we were sitting there in the audience watching this show, and I remember thinking the whole time, I can do better than that.
right. So
And
that kind of spite. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
Not really spite, but just a challenge.
sure. And so that ended up being how I wrote my first pilot. It was I wrote this pilot. It was a half-hour comedy about I was like I remember hearing a conversation about how sometimes the most interesting shows are about lawyers and doctors and these generally like untrusted, reviled positions. And I was like, well, what's another job that people tend to have negative opinions about? So I wrote a pilot about the two brothers that run a funeral home. And I was like, "Oh, cool! Such a fun idea. I'm so proud of myself." And I presented to a friend, and they were like, "Oh, like 6 feet under." And I was like what?"
Which was more drama than comedy.
Yes, it is a different show, but it is a very similar premise. And like that show had its pluses and minuses, and like I put a lot of work into it, and ended up working with someone else on that script. But yeah, because that's the other thing is like, especially as you're learning and finding your voice, you spend time, or certainly I spent time collaborating with other writers and kind of figuring out what my voice is in comparison or collaboration with other people. Sometimes you enjoy the collaboration, sometimes you don't. But like, I love collaboration. I've worked in like rooms where we're like pitching and coming up with different sketches, especially as a comedy writer. I love working with a room of people to write comedy because that's where the jokes and the fun is. And like theoretically, then the show is just a translation of all of that joy kind of put onto the page.
And you've also, I mean, besides the writing class at UCB and stuff, obviously you did do improv and you did do
Sure.
performance.
Yeah.
And I think that's so valuable to you as a writer, and particularly when you write comedy. I assume it's not exclusively comedy. I'm sure you could write anything you want, but perhaps you prefer comedy. But
Everything I write tends to be comedic in one way or the other. The my pilots are pretty much always comedy pilots. My features tend to be more action comedy. Certainly the two that were in the Sherman Oaks Film Fest. And then when I write a short, all bets are off. It's just going to be weird.
right. Excellent. Well, weird is awesome too. But I was leading myself up to saying that
Apologies.
if you no, I wanted you to. You're supposed to talk more than me. But once you've been on stage with an audience doing comedy, you have so much more respect for how easily a joke can fail, how easily a
Yeah.
premise can fail. And when you're writing, are you the kind of comedy writer who can feel how the audience is going to react to it?
I wish I could say yes, but I think the answer is no. That is, I tend to know where the jokes are. I'm not necessarily a setup punchline kind of joke writer. My comedy tends to be reactive as opposed to setup punchlines. So, like, I'll create a funny situation and find the jokes in that is kind of meta referential as opposed to kind of building up to a boy, I sure thought I would take the bus today, kind of like end of like, haha, big laugh next scene.
Right. So that's why you're such a also key collaborator, because then you do some table reads and you hear it out loud, and that's when you can use your ear.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also so important to hear a script out loud because sometimes I'll think there's a joke and no, there's not.
For many years ago, I got stuck giving way too many screenwriters coming to me for help, and I'd always say, before I even read it, have you done it? Have you just had sat down with some friends and had them read it with at the you cannot read any parts. If you want, you can read the stage direction, but you're better off having someone else do that. Just have you sat in a room and listened to your script said out loud? And 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100, the answer is no. And
Yeah.
it's like, how do you expect, why do you even want my feedback till you haven't heard it out loud? You've only heard it in your own mind.
Yeah. It's tough. It's important and I agree with everything you said with a caveat. I think the person who is reading stage directions is potentially the most important role of all because they're the one that's going to be speaking the most. And especially for a comedy, they establish the tone. I have had multiple scripts that were very funny die on the vine because the person who's reading stage directions were presenting it with a lot of gravitas and emotion and and oomph, and that's not what the script needed. And so there was all that gravitas kind of carrying us line to line, and then the jokes were falling flat because like all of a sudden then like it was a tonal shift to Waka Waka. And
Sounds like you have a little bit of a director in your heart,
maybe
because
like,
those I mean, because at a table read they are performing, as you're pointing
oh,
out.
absolutely.
You can deliver the line one way or another way. You can deliver the stage direction one way or another way. So yeah, clearly those people needed a little direction. If they're killing the humor, they're not getting the point.
Well, I think there's a difference between a table read and a writing group. A table read is inherently presentational. I last year and the year before, I organized a table read for 3 to 4 comedy pilots. And the person who was reading stage directions, I was like, I tried to make sure for each of them was a comedy writer so they would understand and kind of give it the patter that it needed. One of them didn't show up on time, and so I filled in with someone who was like, "Quick, we need you someone." And a friend of mine was very nice to fill in, but she was just like reading it. I was like, "Oh no," because like I knew her; she was very funny, but all of a sudden she was on stage in front of an audience and she was trying to sound proper and everything. And it was like, no, you got to throw this shit away. It is very silly, very like you just gotta like da 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 jokes, da 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 jokes. But like when you're in a writing group, I think everyone needs to have a sense of everything because I think the notes you're going to get are very good. But like someone who's good in a writing group is paying attention to the things that aren't going to be said afterwards and gleaning and learning from that. Like I've on more than one occasion, I've been getting notes on a script that I wrote for my writing group, and I'm getting wonderful notes, and I've had to say, I'm sorry, but you're all wrong. The problem is, this is bad. It's so bad, and I appreciate you all trying to save it, but the actual truth is, I have to do this again. It's not working.
That level of self-awareness is massive.
That's kind of the purpose of a writing group is that you get the notes and well there's two different kinds of writing groups. There's the writing group where you're reading out loud together, which I is the kind I prefer, and then there's the kind where you read everything ahead of time and then give notes. I like hearing it out loud because they'll know they may not I'm sorry, I'll know if they don't deliver a joke or laugh at a joke that I know is there, and sometimes they'll laugh at something that I didn't know was a joke, and I think that's important too. So I don't know, hard to say.
No, and obviously different systems work for different people or different methods. And yeah, obviously there is if someone sits down and reads it at home, writes some notes, and then gets together and just is reading their notes to each other, that can be extremely helpful for
Of
some.
course it can.
But in your case, particularly, it sounds like you really do want to be in the moment and hearing it for yourself so that you can assess the quality of what you've done.
Yeah, it's important to me, especially for the writing group that I run, that I don't expect people to bring something to be presented to every single writing group because I don't really think that's the goal of that particular writing group. Obviously, I have to at least bring something or like make sure that something's going to be there because otherwise, what are we going to do? But fundamentally, I think the most important thing in that style of writing group is being surrounded by creative people and feeling a lot of creative energy because that's going to be a better motivator than anything you do on your own. Creativity breeds other creativity, and just being around creative, fun people is going to fill you with a sense of joy and desire to be a part of that creative process more than I think sitting around going trying to figure out what a good idea might be.
Absolutely. And you are very what's the term? I mean, not just collaborative, but a lot of screenwriters I've known can be very isolated.
Oh yeah.
And you sound very connected. You sound like connection to other creatives is another one of the reasons you find this rewarding.
Yeah, I wish I could say I'd been like this the whole time, but it's very much something that like I have tried to be better at because again, I still have the introversion and the anxiety, and so like there's a bunch of like things going on that I more likely don't know about, but sometimes I do and I don't go anyway because I don't have the social anchor kind of thing. Like every once in a while there'll be like an event or something that I'm like I should go to that, but I'm not going to know anyone there and I have a much harder time making myself go. But one of the amazing things about getting to be on strike 3 years ago was that by dint of being on strike and walking the line, you meet other writers and you hopefully get to foster friendships, which I did. And through those friendships, you meet a bunch of other people. Having to go on strike is terrible for all of the reasons that going on strike is terrible. But it is also, but having all those people together in common purpose is amazing because all those people are together in common purpose, and that's amazing. So I have a bunch of friends that I made, and like through those friends, I made a bunch more friends. So I don't know. Social anchors are nice, but sometimes you just got to go to the thing.
Sometimes you just got to do it, but also, and yeah, and community is very important. Community is
Yes.
so important. Um, well, let me ask. So when you decided to transition and make writing your focus, do you want to talk about the process of actually getting into the union, having something get produced? Because Lord, I'm sure a lot you know this. A lot of writers say to themselves, how do I get there and to where you know what you've accomplished?
And of course, the answer to that question is going to be the same answer that everyone gives of I just got really lucky once. I wish I could say that creating tournament has led to other work, but it has not. I joined the WGA right before everyone had to fire all of their agents and representatives because of the packaging thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I wasn't really able to use my joining the guild as a jumping off point to connecting to representatives, which was unfortunate. And then when everyone got their representatives back, the representatives, like people wanted to be like the representatives went after the people who were already established and working and everything. And then 2020 came, and all of the festival runs for the movie that I wrote kind of went away because it was 2020. So it was like I kind of like keep being near these opportunities that keep sort of slipping through my fingers, which is very frustrating. But I don't know if I have a definitive moment when I was like, I'm not an actor anymore. Now I'm a writer. Because in my head, I'm still an actor. It just doesn't happen. Like, if I got an audition, I got to go like perform and do something, like that would be great. I'm 3 episodes into watching Wonder Man right now, and it's like, oh man, this is all so real. I remember a lot of this. And like and I just like writing and acting. It sometimes feels like you have to be given permission, but writing you can do whenever you want. And so because I could do writing whenever I wanted, I wrote a lot more. So I've written, I don't know, 5 6 maybe more features. I've written a lot of pilots. I've written a bunch of shorts, sketches, all these sorts of things, and it's just it also like the you kind of follow the creativity of like what you're going to be working on that year. Like last year, I was working really hard on revising My Dog Loves Broccoli, and then I was working on a my first hour-long pilot because I was like, I don't have that kind of sample, and I should, called First Degree Nerder. And that was all really fun and interesting, but like it was basically one year where I was working on 2 scripts. And then this year, and then towards the end of last year, I started working on the pilot I'm still working on because it was another one of those pilots where I presented it to my writing group and I was like, this isn't working. I overcorrected after the last notes. I kind of just have to burn it down and start again. And I was going to finish the pilot last night, but then I was pretty delirious with, I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I'm pretty sick right now. And that I was like, I'm a little too delirious to be writing right now, so I'm just kind of gonna not. And hopefully tonight I'm able to write the last 2 pages I need to do to finish that pilot, and then I'll re-present it to my writing groups and we'll see what we think.
Yeah,
So
it definitely sounds like
I'm
because
sick, I agree.
well, yeah, but I was actually going to say you're a very productive writer. You really do. You are you are. Let's put it this way. I was often very rude to friends who would write a script and then rewrite it for 3 years and not write
Yeah.
something else because I would be like, you understand, like when you, if and when it ever happens to have a meeting with people, they're going to ask, what do you have? And you should have 5 to 10 things to share at
Oh
least.
yeah.
And it also sounds like you are excellent at organizing these writing groups and becoming a part of things and or championing things or beginning these things also because it obviously aids your productivity.
Yeah. Well, any creative will tell you you got to have the deadline or it's not going to happen. But I wish I was better at organizing and championing because like it is a thing that I like doing and I think it's very fun. But like there are only so many hours in a day and you only have so many spoons. But yeah, I don't know. I also think it's good to have distance. There's a quote I think about a lot from the book Good Omens, which is the Terry Pratchett Neil Gaiman book. And there's a moment when some woman is standing, not some woman, the female lead is standing next to the Antichrist, and she talks about how she can't perceive his aura. And what she didn't realize was that she couldn't perceive his aura because it's like standing in the middle of the ocean and trying to identify water. Of it's just that much all around you. And I think about that in terms of I apply that logic to a lot of other things in that I think sometimes it's impossible to see where you're standing on a project until you get some distance from it. Because if you're swimming in that pool, you're not going to be able to see the edges or the shape of it. You're just going to be in it. And so I actually need to go back and do a full rewrite on First Degree Nerder. Because again, it's my first ever hour long. It's not going to be perfect out the gate. I'm on my like fourth or fifth draft of that, but it needs a sixth or seventh. But I need to work on a bunch of other things in the meantime so that I kind of forget where I was, what I was doing on that, so that when I go back and read it, I'll be like, oh, okay, I can identify the problem here, I can identify the problem here. Either way, anytime I work on something, hopefully that makes me stronger, and I need to go back and be a stronger writer if I'm going to make that script work.
Absolutely. And in fact, that's you're the real deal because screenwriters, I know, like it's always important. Just, I mean, we used to say, just take that script, put it in a drawer and close the drawer. Don't look at it for 6 months
Yeah.
because you really do have to get it out of your head so that you can approach it with fresh eyes.
Yeah, it's a really good thing to have terrible memory because I get to go back and if there's a joke in there and I don't remember it, maybe it's funny.
You never know. Or maybe you'll see something completely different. Just
Exactly.
things that you really, because yeah, you look, we all fall in love with the smell of our own.
Absolutely.
And because it's ours, we love our own work. I know, I apologize.
Good. I liked it.
I grew up in a home filled with toilet humor, like most people. But and yeah, you really do need to step away from things. And then so it actually sounds like you really do have so many spoons and or irons in the fire.
Yeah, it's tiring. I agree. You're right. I should take a break. All right. Well, thanks to
Yeah,
you. I'm
give
going to
yourself
stop doing this.
you've got a cold. No, so take a week off. No, but you know what I mean.
I
It's
know what you mean.
that you're able to shift from project to project so that you can honestly stay fresh with all of them.
That's the goal. That's the hope.
That's excellent. And are you also always just are you a little black book person? Do you like, write down ideas and notes all the time? Do you have like a
Uh,
a file on your phone where you like, okay, I have an idea, or do
no.
you're still
Every
young
once
enough
in
to hold them in your head?
every once in a while, lightning strikes, and I will need to stop and write it down. Like I have a couple documents saved on my computer where it's like, well, this is just a feature idea waiting to happen. But no, I was having this conversation a couple weeks ago. But basically, like 4 years ago, I was talking to my friend Cozy Orlin, and he had the suggestion that for 10 days in a row, you come up with 10 pilot ideas every day. And I was like, oh, okay. And I did that. So I have this document about, I think now it's 103, 104 pilot ideas. And let's be honest, 10 of them are maybe good. Maybe. But like, with the exception of First Degree Nerder, which is its own separate thing that was very much a lightning strikes, I have this idea. All of the pilot ideas I've written over the last 4 or 5 years have been ideas that I've pulled from this document. And I think it's a really good way to force yourself to come up with things. And like fundamentally, a lot of things in this are jokes that I've written for myself, where it's just a singular joke and not a pilot idea. Or it's a feature, or it's a sketch, or it just is nothing. But it forced me to come up with a bunch of ideas, and then I'll return to that document every once in a while and be like, oh, right. Popsicle Warriors is something I wanted to write. And so that's the script I'm almost done with. But no, like every once in a while, I have a thought where I'm like, I need to do this. So here's the funny thing about the two feature scripts I have that have been in the Sherman Oaks Film Fest. I was working on a rewrite of My Dog Loves Broccoli 4 years ago. I was an act into that rewrite. And then I had the idea for the blanket. And I put My Dog Loves Broccoli aside because the original iteration of that script was as 10 years old. And then I went back and rewrote it a couple years ago and was like, okay, it's good now. It was not good before, but I like it now. But because it was the second feature script I ever no third feature script I ever wrote, and I've had to do 4 or 5 since then, and then I was able to go back to it. But I had this idea for the blanket that I was like, oh, that idea is so cool and interesting. I need to do that right now. I ended up spending like the month of April that year, tip to tail, writing the blanket. And the version of the blanket is largely similar to that version that existed then. And then 2 years later, I went back and started again and finally did the rewrite for My Dog Loves Broccoli. And it's just funny that those are the two scripts that have been in Sherman Oaks Film Fest.
That is funny, and it is well, that's how the simulation we live in works.
Absolutely.
So let me ask, and this is definitely a biased question related to being a film festival runner, but are you ever tempted to write something specifically just to shoot it? Like write something bare bone that you can do, guerrilla style, as they say?
So
'Cause-
I have done that, and I have been unfortunately very unlucky with shorts. I have intentionally had a short filmed on 3 different occasions, I think. And something is so I wrote a short called No Talking a long time ago. And that's a short that I think just like in its essence still works now. Because oftentimes I'll look at something I wrote a long time ago and I'll be like, no, thank you. Absolutely not. And why would you even consider that? No Talking is something that I still think works really well. I genuinely love that short. And I would love to see it filmed for real sometime because when it was filmed the first time, the production company I brought it to ended up fighting over who got to direct it. And then that production company fell apart after filming and we lost everything about it. Then I wrote a
You have been a
short.
victim of circumstance too many times.
So then I
But I'll let
wrote,
you keep talking.
yeah, then I wrote a short called The Couch, and I gave it to a friend of mine named Tomei, who's an incredible director. She was actually the first director to ever cast me in something when I got to LA and we stayed friends. And so I gave this to her, and it's about a young woman kind of going through a time in her life from the perspective of when she is sitting on her couch. And it's a difficult thing to film, and I put a bunch of money into it, and we filmed this whole thing. And we ended up hiring a cinematographer, and we hired the cinematographer because he owned his own equipment. He was coming in with his own equipment. Day of, he rented his own equipment out to someone else and rented some different ones that he did not know how to use, and none of the footage was viable.
And there's no recourse for you
There's
on
no
that. You
recourse for
can't you
that.
can't turn to him and say, "Well, now you have to pay us back everything we spent today."
Nope, it's just dead. And
Oh my
then
God.
I wrote a short that was filmed and was edited well and was finished. This is a short called Stopped. And it's a kind of an absurdist style short that takes place at a random bus stop in the middle of the desert. We filmed it. I really liked the way it turned out, and we were just starting our festival run in 2020.
And then yeah, something happened.
Yeah. So yeah, I've had some incredible bad luck with shorts, and I love shorts. I love going to film fest. I love watching them. I think that anytime anything gets finished is a miracle because there's so many different things that can go wrong along the way. And I would love to film something again, but I'm now thrice bitten and a little shy.
Agreed. In fact, geez, the third it's supposed to be the third time the charm. The fact that three in a row got
The third was good to go. There was a global pandemic.
but couldn't you just mothball it till, by the way, I mean, Lord knows I lived that like you. It was insane how much things grew in
Yeah.
2022. Like so many people held on to their films for a while, but
I could have, but unfortunately, towards the end of 2020, the director and I had a bit of a falling out and are no longer friends. And
oh,
so
is
it
it on
didn't
their
feel,
hard drive, not yours?
it's kind of.
Okay, because I was literally about to say, well, yeah, no. With we call ourselves the film festivals that give a shit, and we actually don't have any strict rules about when films were completed.
No, but it wouldn't feel right uploading something without the permission of everyone involved.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Like, I'm not gonna like be like, oh, surprise, I uploaded this without asking you.
Right, right. You're not in
As
the position to send an email and saying, I
yeah,
assume you were, whomever, technically the producers tend to be, but yeah, you just don't feel like going there.
no, that as much as I love that short, and I do, and I think it turned out very good, I no, that feels like a step over the line, and that's not really the kind of guy that I am.
Fair enough. Well, I won't make a joke about how having ethics and standards affects one's career in the film business because things have changed and things are better. And I swear, I do believe that good people can succeed.
Yeah, that's the hope anyway.
Used to be different, but I do feel a lot better about. Lord knows there's so much standing in your way, but I think it'll serve you well that you actually are an ethical person.
I try to be.
Yeah.
I've only stolen so much.
Yeah. Well,
It's fine.
look, if you're stealing food, no, and
No, 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 no.
I know,
Oh
I
boy,
do.
I am thankfully not in that position. That would be
Excellent.
rough.
Excellent. Well, so moving forward, you're just focusing on many scripts at once and doing the writing group thing and just any specific goals for next steps or
Well, so I mean, I have plenty of irons in the fire, as I said, but like it's very much I want to finish this script of Popsicle Warriors because I think it's a very good script, and then I want to try to get it in front of as many people as possible. Unfortunately, I'm also now in a position where I need to find new representation again. So, like, my big goal for this year is going to be to try to find decent representation because, unfortunately, in this town, there are some doors that remain closed unless you have someone there to open it for you. And I don't really have that. So, I very much want to find a representative who is collaborative, responsive, and wants to help wants it so that we can both help each other succeed. And I would love that, and I unfortunately have not found it yet, and that is kind of the always running goal. So
And it is, I have empathy because it is a rough time because the things you mentioned, COVID and strikes, a lot of people got out of the literary business. A lot of literary managers said, I think I'm going to go get a job at Home Depot. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
I mean, yeah,
Like because the money dried up, the studios said, I mean, I wish you were my age because when I was younger, there were seven major studios, and they each felt like if they didn't buy 300 to 500 scripts a year they didn't option, they felt like they weren't doing their jobs because, there was no internet. You know what I mean? Like there used to be an understanding of the importance of writing and having a library of excellent scripts. And there was an infrastructure that actually sort of got scripts from writer to manager to agent
yeah,
to to organization that would option it. And post pandemic and post strike, it feels like a lot of that is sort of up in the air.
yeah. State of the industry notwithstanding, it's always a much bigger step than you realize it is, and then all of a sudden you're on the other side of the step and didn't realize when it happened. So I don't think there will be a day when I wake up and just go, "Oh, I guess I have to refocus and find new goals," because like you're also along in the process, but like I don't know. We'll see. It's kind of a you also never know with representation. Like I've had representation. I'm like I'm so excited to have them. I'm so excited to work with them and do like have this collaborative process, and then it just ends up being this big nothing burger, and I'm just like and you just get this like pit inside of you where it's like I have to do all of that again.
Yeah.
Oh no. So
Uh,
it's like it's tough, but like it's the same thing everyone says about LA is that like you come out to LA, you stick it out as long as you can, and then when you're done, you're done. There's no shame in that. I'm far from done. I love being out here. I love the people you meet out here. I love the collaboration, the creativity that you find in LA. But it's also really hard. And that's true.
it's really hard. And one thing I always shared with people is like, if you can't quit, keep doing it.
Yep.
And some people have the drive and they're like, quitting's not an option. As soon as someone thinks, well, I could quit, I'm like, well, then you should.
Yeah.
Like this people writing and acting for that matter, and every role in this business, but particularly the writers, I do feel like it should be the people who care about it and love it so much that nothing can get in their way.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see. I know well anyway, I certainly hope that a lot of the titles you've named in passing during this conversation, I hope to see them on spreadsheets that in the future when the funny thing is my role is downloading all the ratings and sorting it and then choosing the top whatever and based upon other people's readings of them. And I mean, it's always after meeting you, it was very when I saw the name after my dog loves broccoli, I'm like, yes, nice. You know what I mean? Because we
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
there's no preferential treatment of alumni.
No.
And even in the film stage, which that always horrifies me. It horrifies me when a filmmaker who I've done a Q&A with goes, "Yeah, you guys just rejected my last film." And I hate that email because I'm like, well, I
Didn't have
gave
the
you an
magic
eight.
this
I
time.
gave you an 8.7, but to be honest, this year it's on 9.2 and higher on average. And like, sorry.
Yeah, sometimes
I
that
don't know.
happens.
What can we do? What can we do? There's so many talented people.
It's true. And that's the amazing thing and the terrifying thing about the city is that there are so many talented people. And that's the great thing about film festivals like yours is we get to showcase and witness some of that talent that otherwise would be really difficult to see.
Yeah, and in fact, it always gets me when I attend that. I wasn't able to do it this last December, but whenever I go in and go to that the screenplay award ceremony, and everyone gets up and does their 2 to 3 minute pitch, I sit there and go, "Wow, our writing jury really knows what they're doing." Like, I want to read everything I'm hearing about, which again, I need to win the lottery so that I can, hire enough people to do the stuff I don't want to do so I have time to read
Yeah.
20 those 20 nominated scripts. But they really do sound wonderful. They really, really do.
It was a good batch this year.
It gets me.
And I say that as someone who did not win. Like I remember reading, or not reading, hearing Rocky's pitch for her feature, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's gonna win! That's such an amazing idea. That's so cool."
That's so funny because Rocky, who won, and I can't remember the name. Shame on me. I could look at it. Oh, actually, I think it might be right in front of me. But yes, that screenplay that got that. Oh, Lullaby of 1 Million Work Lurkers
Yeah.
by
The
Rocky
premise of
Minuel.
yeah, Rocky's script is basically she lived her life, I think, on TikTok for a year as a character, and basically whatever the chat suggested that she do, she had to do it. And then she wrote a screenplay about that experience, and it's like I'm hearing her pitch this, and I'm like, well, yeah, that sounds amazing. What an incredible way to find the information for her script, and it was her first feature script, but obviously she did a very good job. She did the research, she did everything. What a story.
Yeah, she came up to me in the lobby and said, "Oh my God, I can't believe I won." And to be honest, I went, "Oh, congrats. Because I didn't run the ceremony, so I actually didn't have the winners' names on on the
Yeah, yeah,
tip of my
yeah.
tongue." And I was like, "Congrats to you." But as I said, being nominated, being top 10 really does mean something because we get a lot of scripts.
Yeah.
We get enough that oh, it's very funny.
And
I can
look,
I can share with you that we always get emails after the official selections go out. You obviously didn't read my script, and I feel like sending him a reply that says, "Well, here's a screen grab. 7 jurors read your script, and you average below a 5 out of 10. So
yeah.
maybe do a table read."
Yeah. I mean, fundamentally, there's an argument that table reads are as effective, if not more effective, sometimes than attending film fest. But like film fests are, I always say film fests are good because you get to meet other creatives. It's the exact same thing we've been saying this whole time of like a lot of the things that we do are inherently isolating. But a film fest, everyone has to be there together and you get to meet other people.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, if I had $1 for every time I had a good conversation with someone who runs an acting studio about the idea of, look, will you take our award-winning scripts and do a table read with at your acting school, just do a table read because obviously it's not within the film festival's purview to
No.
pull in enough staff and talented people to do that, and they always like the idea, and then it doesn't happen. I
I
would love for that to be the extension of our
I
screenplay awards.
I did so I went to Genre Blast in West Virginia a couple years ago, and it's a very cool and interesting film fest. And the way they do it is they have finalists, and they have fewer finalists than you do, but like basically they have the finalists pick a scene, and then there's a block where instead of there being films, it is a reading of those scenes. The problem is that like you have to cast from people who are actively there. And so you have to like figure out and like I don't remember how our block was cast, but like we had to figure it out. And that script was a script called Pirates vs. Ninjas. So there were a lot of people in the scene we picked. And it was ended up being very, very fun. And some of the other filmmakers who were there ended up having like a sense of like ownership of like, I really love Peg or whoever we were having her read, and it was just like a very simple, silly thing. But there's also the aspect of people attend film fest to see films.
Yeah, and it is always tough to because obviously it's a financial venture as well. We owe it to the nonprofit to not run too big a deficit. And Lord knows, I would certainly not feel that we could charge, $10 a
No.
seat for people to listen to table reads and or just
Yeah.
script readings. And you know, I'm proud that we take that 1 hour and we make the screenwriter
Yeah, yeah,
award
yeah.
ceremony free
And
to the public. Because
and that was
again, you
very
don't want to
fun.
ask, right? You don't want to say to people, "Oh, invite friends and family to be there for you," but they've got to pay. Like that just seems wrong.
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous. But like I said, every film fest is different. You're basically going to meet the people, and so you should. You should go, you should meet the people, have a lovely time, see some things you would never otherwise see, and enjoy them because they're great.
Yeah, and get some emails and then chat with people on social media and, who knows, maybe, you'll see Rocky again someday and
It's possible.
you never know.
I think they live in Georgia or something
I
because
think it's
Rocky came
Nashville.
with
I think was it
I
Nashville?
think it might have been Nashville because it was Rocky came with Madeline and they were both it was like their first time in LA and like Madeline's the producer, Rocky's the writer and actor, and it was just like fun. There
People
were a
are
lot of
fun,
people. There were a lot of people at Sherman Oaks Film Fest this year who were like in town or in LA for the first time, and it was like, yeah, fun.
right? I jokingly, well, we call that among the staff rewarding the idealism because
Yeah,
when we're going through, we honestly don't look at where people live when we're choosing the official selections. We just
nor
want the
should you.
best stuff possible. And then every time someone is like, I'm coming out from, by the way, sometimes people come from Europe and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh my God, you've just put the fear in me because what if you fly from Berlin and have a shitty time? Like, I mean, it adds the pressure. But I love that people now travel for this festival.
yeah. If you can, I think it's fun and worth it.
Yeah, it,
But
it
everyone's
is.
different.
Yeah. Of course, then they come to LA and they're so excited to be here that they don't attend enough screenings because they're running around.
That is also true.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty hard for a film festival to compete. I have an envy of those destination festivals where there's nothing to do in town but the festival.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That it's different.
It's different, but hey,
I mean, look, there's plenty of
we
stuff to do
get
in
people
Glendale
coming to,
also.
right? We get people attending from Berlin, from New York,
Yeah.
from heck, 2 years ago we had a block where there were two upstate New York films in the same block that we were unaware, and they were like, "Wait, you shot in the bookstore?" And they it turned out they lived in the same, they
That's
lived
so
adjacent to the
funny.
same town, and they didn't know each other, but they met at
That's
I think it was
amazing.
Film Vision LA. That was like such a fun Q&A that like filmmakers were like sharing, "Wait, that's blah 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 books. You shot there? I was thinking of shooting there and I chickened out." And like it was the best conversation. It was so
Oh, I
fun.
love that so much.
That's excellent stuff. All right, well, thank you for always being involved whenever you're selected. That means a lot too. And anything else you want to mention before we jump off?
If anyone thinks it's fun listening to me talk about movies, I also have a podcast. My podcast is called Ideal Remake. In this podcast, I take movies that have been, will be, or should be remade and talk about what the ideal version of that remake would be. As of this recording, I have recorded over 182 episodes, and I'm currently on hiatus between seasons 8 and 9. By the time this episode comes out, series 9 will be starting. And the first episode of season 9 is going to be Ghost Rider. But I've had the opportunity to talk about different movies and stuff. And like, as someone who's like in in Hollywood, in writing, it's always nice to force myself to watch movies I wouldn't otherwise see, and then I get to have a conversation about them. It's a very fun podcast. I'm sure if you scroll through the feed, there's a movie that you want to hear us have a conversation about. And remember, it's has been, will be, or should be. Should be is only a third of the categories. Has been remakes are things that count, and will be remakes are, well, it's already IP. Hollywood's probably going to take a crack at it eventually anyway. So it's a very fun podcast. I love doing it. It's me and a guest every time. Give it a listen.
We will make that a clickable link in the show notes. If whether you have a web page or social media, whatever clickable links you want, we will put in the show notes of this, particularly of the Ideal Remake podcast. It's funny how things work. I think you're in the last month the second or third person who has their own podcast, and I'm like, right on. Let's promote your podcast too.
What
And
sort
that's
of
a
white
fun
dude?
idea.
What sort of white dude in my 30s would I be if I didn't have a movie where I talked, or a podcast where I talked about movies?
It is required, isn't it?
Them's the rules.
And we live by the rules.
We do indeed.
All right. Well, thank you, Sam.
Thank
And
you,
thank you,
Jeff.
everyone, for listening. If you want to learn more about Sam, of course, go to the links in the show notes and it'll take you right where you need to go. If you want to learn more about this podcast where we talk to creatives on the festival circuit, just go to discoverindiefilm.com. On social media, it's always at DIFWins. I always add that I quit social media over a year ago. I lurk, but I stay away from it. This weird thing happened that I read a book after I quit. I didn't quit.
Wild.
I quit because of things going on in the world. And, but anyway, that's my way of saying that my wonderful podcast producer, Karina, if you write to us on social media, it's at DIFWins. Karina will answer your things. I don't look. I just don't even look. So, and I only sign into Instagram on my personal account now and then because I have a darn friend in Vancouver who only instant message me there. I keep going, could you switch to text? And he goes back to Instagram. What are you going to do? So anyway, that's discoverindiefilm.com. If you want to learn about the film festivals that Sam and I discussed, that's Sherman Oaks Film Festival and Film Invasion Los Angeles, you can actually just go to the nonprofit's website, discoverindiefilm.org, and that'll link to both of them, as well as their social media, I believe. And I always call those two sister festivals, and they both had their 10th anniversaries last year in 2025. But 2026, they got a cousin in South America, Film Invasion Lima, in Lima, Peru. And it actually went off wonderfully. It made me so happy.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was honestly just happened in a natural way. A team that had been two-time alumni at Sherman Oaks. At the Mixer, in the Look Cinemas bar in Glendale, where you and I first met, Chevy and Pilar were there, and they live in Lima. And Chevy said, Jeff, I wish I had a community like this in Lima of indie filmmakers. And because we have that name, Film Invasion Los Angeles, since we started in 2016, a lot of people are always like, oh, you want to do a Film Invasion in Vancouver? You want to do it? And like people kept hitting us up for other cities, but they expected my team and I to do all the work and them just be like the local person. And I was like, sorry, could have worked actually 8 years ago, but now I'm not complaining. It's a lot of work, and the festivals have grown. I mean, we've grown to 3 screens at once. So there's simply no free time to run a third festival. So I just say to everybody, if you're going to here's the work that has to be done, and I will mentor and help and support you as a collaborator, but you're going to be the festival runners. And this wonderful team in Lima said yes.
Fantastic. That's wonderful.
And I have to say that I've gotten emails from people whose films were there who attended in person, and they said, that was my favorite festival experience I've had so far.
Amazing.
And I was like, woohoo, because that's what you want to hear. So
it is.
There we go. All right, Sam, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. And if you're still listening to my silly voice, know that the podcast there'll be a podcast after this one where Sam gets to answer the Discover Indie Film 4 questions, which are name 3 you love, underrated, overrated, and something lesser known. So there we go. We're about to record that one right now. And thank you, everybody.